It's showtime. People probably wander in. Okay, because it's normally we open meetings with the Pledge of Allegiance, but I ask everyone to stand. We'll pledge allegiance tonight. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you for coming out this evening. For those people that know me, I'm Mr. Tom Simbor. For those people that don't know me, I'm still Mr. Simbor. At any rate, it seems the district never gets the good press that we really should get, and as usual, we've gotten some bad press lately, but we do plenty of things here every day. We do our best for our students. And just one of the things that comes to mind is we're going to be doing Bald for Bucks, where we have teachers and students shaving their heads to raise money for charity. So we have some people contributing so the kids can go to their the senior prom, whichever prom it is, junior prom. So, I wish some of the things like that would get in the news, but that's life. At any rate, we do get to hear from the candidates who are running for 3 seats at Wayne Central School Board. These were questions supplied by students. I changed the grammar. Other than that, they are all in that format. The procedure basically was to allow candidates to expand on a comment if they wanted to, the opportunity to compose their thoughts and get the best response. So they were given the questions in advance. They can choose to respond to any or all questions. They can also tell you a bit about themselves and their qualifications for their place on the Board of Education. And I hope that there's nobody that feels slighted about the decision to exclude community input. It was never designed for that. The event was created to allow government students to really see how grassroots politics works. So our goal is to have students ultimately become active students in the democratic process. And if you'd like to talk to one of the candidates in person, and I hope you do, we'll have meet and greet when we leave. We'll have some cookies outside, shake their hands, say hello, and hopefully make some small talk. So I guess without further ado, I'd like to remind people that the district's vision is to provide the best education by any measure, and that's why we go to the lengths of introducing these people. So, as Noah once said, would somebody look outside and see if it's still raining? No. I think he said, let's get going. So, the first candidate is going to be Ms. Pam Pendleton, and she's going to give you a short bio. So.
Okay. Hello. My name is Pam Pendleton. I actually graduated from this school, and the last time I was on the stage, I was giving a talk to the senior class right before our senior trip. I graduated from Wayne, like I said. I also went to Potsdam State, got my undergrad degree there. I was a gen ed student, or gen ed major, and then I got my master's at Nazareth. I taught at North Rose Wolcott for 28 years, and then other districts for about 4 years, doing that while I was working on my master's. While I was at North Rose, I was part of the Teachers Association. I was a building rep. I was on the social committee, and I also ran the Honor Flight. I don't know if you've heard of that. It's a organization that sends our World War II vets down to Washington, all expenses paid. And we've done spaghetti dinners and raised money for that the last 2 years that I was teaching. I was also a student council advisor at the elementary building. I served on a principal search committee, a superintendent search committee, and I was also lead teacher when we decided to look at UPK for our district. I'm part of NESEED, which is a New York State organization for educators. I've served as president 2 terms, I ran 2 conferences, and I'm currently the secretary. I'm also an active member of the Ontario Presbyterian Church, where I worked on a pastoral search committee, the worship committee, and as well as a deacon. I volunteer at the Maplewood nursing residence with pet therapy. I take my dog in and visit the residents. They love her. And then I volunteered as a guardian for one of the World War II vets.
Okay, thank you. We're going to hear from Mr. Ron Miller, who is currently an interim appointee to the Board of Education and certainly a familiar face around the district.
Thank you. My name is Ron Miller, and I was appointed to the board of Education in November to fill a vacancy created by resignation. I've been a resident of Wayne Central Schools from 1963 to 1997 and from 2000 to the present. Our two children are graduates of Wayne Central. One's a teacher and the other is a building principal. And I currently have two grandchildren in the Wayne Central school system. I began my public career in education at Wayne Central in 1963 as a teacher in this very building. In addition to teaching, I was also a coach and I was a class advisor. And for you seniors, and I assume you're seniors sitting here in the front row, if you went on the senior trip, my wife and I were class advisors for the class of 1967, the first class to take a senior trip to New York City, and my wife is sitting here in the audience, so you can thank her for your senior trip. I believe the class has gone to New York City every year but one since 1967. They did not go following 9/11, 9/11. After teaching for a while, I became the assistant principal of the high school, and then in 1987, I became the principal of the high school. If you go out in the hall and if you look at the AP plaques and the plaques of students receiving 100s on the Regents exams and 100 on the competency exams, that is a tradition that I started. In 1997, I retired from Wayne Central, and I briefly taught for SUNY Brockport as an adjunct instructor in the Department of Educational Administration. I became bored, and my wife and I moved to Pennsylvania, and I took another job at Jersey Shore High School, and I spent 6 years at Jersey Shore Area High School, retiring from there in 2003 as the high school principal. After thinking about it, we moved back to Ontario in 2008 to be closer to our children and grandchildren. I have a Bachelor of Science degree in education from Bloomsburg University of Pennsylvania, my master's degree in educational administration, and my certificate of advanced study is from SUNY Brockport. I'm certified as a high school principal in Pennsylvania, and I have a certification to be a superintendent of schools in New York State. I also have additional educational credits from SUNY Oswego, Bloomsburg University of Pennsylvania, University of Rochester, and Appalachian University in Boone, North Carolina. During my career, I was lucky in that over 20 times I was selected to be a fellow to attend the Institute for the Development of Educational Activities. That was a program sponsored by the Kettering Foundation, and so for over 20 years I spent a week each summer on a college campus learning the latest theories and research about education. I believe that my background, my training, and my experience in public education will allow me to make a positive impact on the quality of education that Wayne Central is able to provide to its students. Schools today face multiple challenges, from shrinking state aid to Common Core curriculums and new tests to increased demands for services. Over the course of my career in public education, I've worked with 7 different superintendents at Wayne Central and 1 in Pennsylvania. I've seen a great variety of leadership styles and cultures and climates. I believe that I have a unique background to contribute to improving the outcome for students in Wayne Central at a cost the taxpayers will support. I believe that over the course of my career, I've attended something like 660 school board meetings. That's a lot of meetings, but if you folks do feel that I'm the best candidate and vote for me to be on the school board, it'll be a real privilege for me to represent Wayne Central and to try to improve the quality of education that our young people receive. Thank you.
Thank you. And our third candidate is incumbent, Mrs. Deborah Hibbard.
Thank you, Mr. Simbor. First, I want to thank you and the students for submitting the questions and for hosting this tonight. I'll go into it a little bit about myself. And before I start, Zach is participating in the Going Bald for Bucks, and I really can't wait because he's in desperate need of a haircut. My name is Debbie Hibbard. I was raised here in the district. I graduated in 1986. I went to SUNY Geneseo and graduated in 1990 with a Bachelor's of Arts in Psychology and a nursery school through 6th grade teacher's certificate. I did let that expire as I fell in love with early childhood education. I work as a program and a curriculum coordinator at a private school in Pittsford. I am there. I've been there 22 plus years, and now I work there part-time. I also currently work part-time at Joe Bishop Auto Sales, where everybody knows is on 104. Having these 2 part-time jobs has allowed me more family time, more flexible schedule to meet the demands of being a school board member. I have 2 children enrolled in the district. My son Zach will graduate this year in June, along with these gentlemen. My daughter's in 7th grade at the middle school. They're both involved in multiple sports year-round, so like many parents, we're often running from one event to the other. My husband of 20 years is a Rochester City firefighter, and we've learned to juggle things despite his alternating day-night crazy schedule. As a family, we enjoy hunting and fishing together, camping, traveling, and I'm sorry to all the Yankees fans, but we like cheering for our beloved Red Sox. I'm also an avid runner with a half marathon under my belt, and I'm sure many of you have probably driven past me when I'm hitting the pavement throughout the town. Before I decided to run for re-election, I talked to a lot of people, parents, friends, teachers. Some of the things that they said back to me was, why run again? Why put yourself through that? Haven't you had enough? Those are questions I was asked, and my answer to that is no. I haven't had enough. I'm a people person, and I find joy in serving others and serving my community. I'm passionate about Wayne Central. I'm proud of our district, and I think I can help to make it even better. We should never be satisfied and always work towards improving ourselves and supporting those around us to do the same. Some words that would describe me are genuine, committed, positive, caring, hardworking, honest, visible, and approachable. I have 4 belief statements that I want people to come away from tonight to remember. Number 1 on that list is students first, always. Second, positive communication through listening and accepting of different ideas. Third, responsible, sensible budgeting with a focus on the future. And lastly, but certainly not least, staff deserve to be valued, supported, appreciated, and celebrated. I will work tirelessly on behalf of all 20,000 stakeholders in this school district, if given the chance. Thank you.
We each have a round of applause for these folks.
You're forgetting one. You're forgetting Dennis.
Oh,
Applause for Dennis.
Thank you.
Dennis is used to this.
I know, I go without any introduction.
Mr. Dennis Landry.
Good evening, everybody, and thanks, Tom. Thank you, everybody, for coming out tonight, taking the time out of your schedules to come hear us talk. My name's Dennis Landry. I'm a Wayne Central resident for the past 22 years. I have 3 children that have all graduated from Wayne Central, and one that actually returned again to become a teacher. You all might know her as Mrs. Marino. Her husband also works here, Mr. Marino. And my wife works here in the district, too, as a bus driver. Some of you may have had her. I currently work at DC Collision in Webster. I graduated from Webster, so this hasn't been that far for me to come. I am a member of the Alliance Club in Walworth. I'm also the vice president of the Webster Ridge Runners. I'm also the chair of the Democratic Committee in my town. I've also served on the board for the Rochester Auto Body Guild. So I keep myself pretty busy. People ask me why I want to do this. Some of them say I'm crazy. Well, I've been coming to the board meetings for the past 20 years pretty regularly. I've seen just about every board member come and go, and I thought it's time for me to throw my hat into the ring. So I'd appreciate everybody's consideration. Thank you.
Now we can give them a round of applause. Okay. Because I think they've been given a range of questions. But I think everybody gave their best qualifications, and we'll get back to that if not. But let's just start with, and the format with these questions is pretty open-ended. Anybody can respond to it, anybody can tag on, so it's just a pretty polite thing. But I guess the first question I would ask is, if there was a wish list that you could have for Wayne and hopefully the budget to do it, What would be number one on your list, maybe that we don't have, or we could power up a little bit? So we'll throw it out. Go ahead, Hibbert.
When I was preparing for this was one of the first ones that I kind of jotted some notes down on, so that's why I kind of jumped on it. I don't know if I necessarily have a number one, but I'll go through a couple of big ones. A wish list, digital sign out in front of the high school. Instead of having to have employees go out and put letters and numbers. Maybe in front of the middle school, too. I'm going to push pretty hard, should I be reelected, for an advocacy tab on our website that would allow parents, staff, and students easy way to communicate with our elected representatives on different topics, like the Common Core. An inter-campus road would be nice at some point. It would help with traffic, safety, things like that. And one that Ron and I have talked quite a bit about would be a turf field.
We were both at Seneca Falls last night for our girls lacrosse team game, and if you've never been to Minders Academy, they have one of the most beautiful stadiums with an interactive scoreboard as well as a turf field. And of course, people who were there knew that Deb and I were on the board and were saying, what do we need to do at Wayne Central to get a turf field? I think, though, if I had to do a wish list, the first thing on my wish list would be for the state to resume its responsibility to fund public education. Over the last few years, the state has backed away from funding in the state of New York through the gap elimination aid. And I think if I had a wish list, it would be to have what is fair and reasonable returned to schools so that less burden would be placed on our local taxpayers.
I would actually have to agree with Ron, because you see all the great programs and then you hear of schools having to cut music and sports just to make the education happen for kids. And yeah, state ed needs to come down and really give more support to the schools so it, like Ron said, it isn't all on the taxpayers.
I'll have to piggyback with the turf field. I think it's a great idea. My son-in-law is a coach for soccer. We've discussed this many times. I actually built the soccer shelters one summer out there that you see out there. A turf field would do so much for the district, too. Not only would it would allow us to play games earlier and practice earlier, but it could also be used for community things like the Wayne Wings and stuff like that, to where you can actually bring the community together. I mean, really, a school is kind of a community anyways, and it is what brings the community together. So what better way to do it than through a turf field to where you can play all the time? I mean, it's like one of my dreams to see that happen. And along with everybody else, you know, the education with the New York State, we've been really getting the shaft there. I mean, they've cut. When was the last time any of your taxes or any of your other things have gone down in New York State? Nothing happens but keeps going up. Yet they keep mandating stuff to this unfunded mandates, which are the big problem, for the school districts without any help whatsoever. So we really need to get some letters or some push into Albany to get them to give us back the money that we should be getting. And also working on our county level to keep that sales tax money part that we get, to keep that coming. I mean, I would really urge everybody to talk to your local supervisors and tell them, look, you got to keep that money coming to our school districts because we need it more. All they'll do is just spend it on one of their pet projects, and education's a little bit more important as far as I'm concerned.
We're just going to take the flip side of that question. If money gets tight, and we all know New York State, correctly, they've been pumping money into charter schools and whatever. We're not here to discuss that. But if there were programs or sports or whatever that had to go, what would be first on your list if you had a list? Anybody? This is going to be popular.
Well, I think I can speak as a teacher. I know when I had to cut my budget, you know, I had to go through and see what things I absolutely didn't have to have for my classroom. And that's hard. And I don't know that I could say we're going to cut a whole program. Maybe cut back on some so that we can keep everything, but maybe make a little bit less so maybe we do fundraising or something, but just, I hate to see anything cut because I think all programs are valuable to all students because not all students learn in the same way. There are, and you guys can see for yourselves, there's certain things that you excel at and other classes that you don't. So it's good to have a well-rounded program. So I would have a really hard time saying that I would cut something.
If we have to cut, I would have to say let's cut it where it really doesn't cost our students. And this might not be popular with certain people, but let's start with the administration. We can cut our costs in administrations. It'll keep our teachers working. That's where I'd make my cuts. And luckily, this district has got a lot of money in our reserves. I don't see where we'd really have to cut anything right away, and hopefully we would be able to ride the storm out.
I'm going to piggyback a little bit on that. I don't think there should be any budget cuts. The Board of Education in the district right now has a 5-year plan, and that plan is to continue to use our reserves and help fill that gap in funding from the state aid until the state comes back up to the levels it was before. I looked at that pie chart when we're looking at costs and where the tax dollars are going. 80% of it is going to program. 10% of it is going to administration and 10% to capital. So I think that we have 80% of it going to our students, and if we can do more and make it 85, I'd be all for it. There's no reason to cut anything at this point.
Sounds good. Speaking of capital, those people that have seen the building recently know that we've already started some needed capital improvements, but at some point we have to look at the elementary school. Where are we looking at that in your estimation?
Well, I opposed the capital project last time when we wanted to put in a new school. I still oppose it. I think what we have works right now. And until we have a huge influx in population, I don't see any reason really to do anything at this point in time. I know you got to look towards the future, but looking towards the future, you're seeing families getting smaller, not larger. I think what we have works, and I don't think I'd make any changes there.
Anybody else want to jump in on that one?
Ontario Elementary School was an old building when I came here in 1963. It's still an old building. It has some needs. At the same time, budgets are tight. So we are in a position on the board where we have to balance what we currently need with future needs. At some point, this Board of Education, as unpopular as it may be, will have to address the building needs of Ontario Elementary School. It will have to. When, I'm not sure. But at some point, that building need has to be addressed.
I'm just going to comment, since I'm a member of the Communications Committee, where Mr. Eaton is done a fantastic job with it. We have actually discussed having this as a topic for one of our future roundtable discussions, so we can collect community input in that. And Ron's right. That building is old, and enrollment has gone down, so it is something that will be discussed at some point. And anyone who has strong feelings about the elementary buildings and what should or shouldn't be done, I would encourage you to go to the school website when we have this roundtable discussion and bring your input to those. Thank you.
Okay, this one hopefully will be a little bit easier. Senior project. Our seniors have just gone through their latest round of the senior project. What are your feelings on it? Should we keep it? Should we dump it? Why or why not?
Absolutely keep it. When I first, I know that would be real popular with you seniors. When I first went to Pennsylvania in 2007, Pennsylvania had just made a senior project, a graduation requirement. They divided the schools in the state into thirds, and each year a third of the schools had to start a senior project as a graduation requirement. The particular school district I was in the first third. So the first year I was in Pennsylvania, we were doing a senior project from scratch. my perceptions of the senior project, not only in Pennsylvania, but when I came back here in 2008, I was asked to come in and help evaluate the senior project. I think it's probably the most singular thing we can do to prepare you kids for what you're going to experience either in college or in your job or in the military. To get up in front of people and to have to make a presentation and to have to do some research and to have to defend what you're doing, I think is an invaluable experience, as unpopular as that might be with you folks in the front row.
I think the senior project is a great idea. I have helped a couple students out on it. And the other real thing that I'm seeing on this is the new program coming out, CDOS, which is to help the young or the kids with disabilities get a certificate of graduation. That senior project is necessary for them to get it. So it's going to help that too. And I also think it's a good learning experience. And everybody I've ever talked to that has gone through it, they said, boy, I'm glad I really learned something. So, and it gets you ready for college too. So absolutely keep it. I think it's fun for you guys actually in the end.
Okay. Back to a hardball question. My dad pitched in the minor leagues many years ago. So you got to change your pitches up. Should there be more community input in financial decisions? I mean, it's been, we've had issues with the audit and so on. Should the community be able to give more input into that financial area that is somewhat controversial?
Yes, absolutely. I think the community needs to have their input. Even though you elect us as officials to represent you, I think that the community input is very, very important. It'll do two things. First of all, it'll educate you guys on what goes into the budget and why it's done. The other thing, too, is it'll help us as me as a potential board member to know where you're coming from. I found out some things this year on the school budget, on how it's actually made, that it's built from zero. They don't start and carry over from last year. That was kind of an eye-opener for me, and it made some other decisions for me on how I felt about it. So, yeah, I do think it's a good idea. I think it's a good learning experience for both.
I would totally agree with Dennis there. Absolutely, especially when it comes to budget decisions. Our board, actually the current board, has discussed many times, and we're interested in having some type of budget advisory group to help guide those budget decisions. And the discussions have centered around, and this was brought up by Mr. Reynolds this year a couple of times. Those groups, those advisory groups, should include representatives from our community, employees, administrators, students, board members. And that's got to occur. That process is going to take a little while to develop in terms of what it will actually look like. But the district starts putting budget things together in October, November, very early in the school year. We can't wait until February, March, and April to start collecting input. There's not enough time to get it done. But absolutely, I think the community does need to have more input in those financial decisions.
I agree with that as well. I think, and you brought up a good point about most people see the budget and then they start complaining or commenting. I think to create an awareness of when the budget is actually being developed, to start those meetings, I think it's essential that the community have input, because when you have input, you have ownership and you'll have better community support and we'll have a better school district.
Ultimately, whatever budget is put together by the school has to go out to the taxpayers for approval. So obviously, if we have your support through the process, we're more likely to have our budget approved. We have this past year, this board has done a lot of things to make our financials more transparent. If you go to the school website, you can get our budget audits and you can get all the budget information, and that's posted each month. So we are in the process of trying to gather more community support and understanding of how the budget process works.
This one is really specific to a program that's fairly expensive, and that's specifically the International Baccalaureate program. Do you see us going down in the future? Are we keeping this program or long-term plans? Are we eventually going to expand the program as like East Irondequoit has done, expanding it into the earlier years? Do you have any feelings on where IB is going, or if we're even going to keep it long-term?
When it first came out, I was opposed to it, just because I thought it was a very costly program and it affected a very small amount of students. And I'm going, well, can our money be spent better ways? Then I got a little bit more information on it. Then along came No Child Left Behind. And I said, okay, now look at this, gives us a place for our not smarter students, but our students that do well. Let's face it, not everybody's a rocket scientist. Some of us are George Bush, and look at, he became president. But no, it's a good program. I think it's something that we really need to keep and expand, absolutely.
I just have to interject real quick. I always make a prediction about 2016, and I've been doing this since 2012. And George just followed me up today. He said, Jeb Bush will be the next president of the United States. You heard it here first. So just be prepared.
I do think that when you keep higher standards, you get higher interest and you get a better output of students. So although I'm not involved in deciding whether it comes or goes or gets expanded, I do think it's important. I would support it.
If you look at the data over the last couple of years, we've had increasing participation in that program, so there's no way that I can believe that we should get rid of it at this point. I think also, as our district has IB, I think it makes our district attractive and desirable for families to move to. So I think that, yeah, we definitely need to keep that.
And last year, our salutatorian and valedictorian, not this year, but last year, were both IB graduates. So that's something to throw in the mix. This one is a little lighter, but should the Board of Education address penalties given to students who break school rules? Whether you're talking about in-school suspension, which has been a hot topic in the city school district, or things like that. So should the board get involved with school penalties?
Simple, no.
That is the correct answer. That is the prerogative of the school administration. That's not the prerogative of the Board of Education. The Board of Education sets policies and sets the tone for the district, but the actual rules for the behavior in the school, that's up to the administration.
Well said. This one is a hardball question. Should there be more community input in personnel decisions? And we've had a number of occasions where people would support an individual and come to the board meetings and storm that meeting, so we know how that goes. So should there be more community input in personnel decisions?
Once again, absolutely not. Personnel matters are personal. It's between the school administration and that teacher, and it's nobody else's business.
I agree. However, I think it does depend sometimes. I think, for example, we've had community members sit on hiring committees for employees. The current athletic director is an example of that. We had community members in on the interviews. But in general, the board's role is limited to supporting or not supporting those recommendations that come before us.
Okay, so we're getting down to the end of our questions here. And this is sort of a summary question. What do you feel is your best qualification that you bring as a future board member, or in some cases a current board member? So, personal resume. We'll start with Ms. Hibbard.
Sure, I'm not on my right page yet. Hang on. Here we go. I have a few things. I think that I have some extremely strong relationships with parents, students, and staff, all 5 buildings. I work hard to be an advocate for our students. I ask a lot of questions. I ask staff, I ask teachers, I ask administrators, I ask kids, I ask parents. And and I do a ton of my own research. Being a board member means you have to search your own information. If you're not satisfied, you have to do the digging. I'm experienced. I think that far outweighs anything right now. Now more than ever, we need experience on this school board. Should I be fortunate enough to be reelected, I'll be the senior member with only 3 years. It takes a year to just understand how things work. The current board that we have right now, it's finally starting to really work well together. I had a conversation with Mr. Eaton about this yesterday. Like, we're on a good roll, and we're finding ourselves in agreement so much more often than we were back in the fall. And I want to be a part of continuing to keep that good roll going. And I think what we have right now is a good thing, and I think that experience is extremely important right now.
I guess I would have to say that I'm passionate about Wayne Central. When we moved back to the Rochester area from Pennsylvania, the one criteria we had was that the house we purchased had to be in Wayne Central. My email address are my initials and then the letters WCS, Wayne Central Schools. I think the other thing that makes me qualified to be a school board member is my experience and my training, not only at Wayne Central, but in other environments like in Pennsylvania, but with an idea that my role as a board member is to make sure that you kids get the very best possible education that we can provide you. That may mean sometimes that we push more rigor on you than you might like, but that's what we're here for, to make sure that when you leave here, you are prepared to either go on to higher education, to go out in the workforce, or if you go into the military, we want you to be able to be more than just a grunt. We want you to be able to pick up skills and have skills and aptitudes. So that's why I would like to be returned to the Board of Education for the next 3 years to push academic rigor in the district.
I have always been very proud to be a graduate of this district, and I now am proud to be a resident of this district, which I've been for many, many years. The reason I want to run for the board is that I want to continue the good reputation of Wayne Central, and I would like to restore it back to the good reputation it's had in the past. With my strong educational background, I feel I would bring that information and that experience to the board. I've not only been a team player, I'm a good listener. Obviously, with being a classroom teacher, you have to be a good listener. But I've also led committees, so I'm not afraid to take on a job and explore and see what it takes to get a good job done. I'm anxious to make sure that our district remains the quality institution that it has been and providing good education at the best cost to the taxpayers. And that's basically why I'm running.
Well, as many board meetings as I've attended over the years, I actually feel like I am a board member, just like you, Susan. That's one of the reasons why I want to run. That, and I think that I can bring some real-world experience as a manager that had to adopt budgets and stay in line with them budgets. I think I can bring some experience there. I also owned my own business for several years. So I can bring some real-world experience to it. And I care about it. Obviously, my daughter teaches here. My wife works here. My son-in-law. My grandchildren will be coming to this district because they all live in the district, too. So I have a big concern for this district, and I want to see it succeed.
Okay, thank you. And just a note for everyone out there, and please spread the word that it's important to get out there and vote. Too often people will complain, well, the government this, the government that, and then if you ask them if they voted, well, I was kind of busy that night, the game was on. So I don't have that problem. I'm a Mets fan. It's no point. We know we lost. But I am wearing my Mets tie tonight. But seriously, it is important that we be active in the community. You're very fortunate. When I came to Wayne 12 years ago, we were struggling academically, and we're coming out of a bit of a struggle. And now I really do believe that we are doing education by by excellence by any measure. And I think we got to keep it going in that direction. Unfortunately, you haven't had big raises in your taxes. And I think that's also a credit to the people that on the Board of Education that have been fiscally very conservative, if I can use that term. So please do that. And also, just to put a plug, there's also the chicken dinner that day. But the polls will open from 9 to 9. Will be in the school foyer. Anybody over the age of 18, and please encourage people to come out and vote. And last but not least, once again, your potential candidates, Mrs. Pendleton, Mr. Landry, Mr. Miller, and Mrs. Hibbard. And please give them a round of applause and thank you to all of you. Well, would you like a closing? I would like. Okay. Absolutely. So we have closing statements. Well, we'll start with Mr. Landry. That's only fair.
Okay. In closing, vote for me. No. It is important to vote. Tell your neighbors, get everybody out there to vote. Take a look at what's gone in this district, see where you want this district to go, and hopefully I'm one of the guys that you can look at.
I agree with getting people out to vote. When I had my classroom, I taught self-contained, so I had third and fourth graders, and to inspire them to get their parents to go out and do their civic duty and their right to vote, I came in, I would always go vote before I went to school, and I had my sticker, and little kids love stickers, so they all ran home and told their parents, if we go, I get a sticker. So it is important to vote, because that's the only way you can get your voice to be heard. And I would hope that you would understand and realize that I do have a passion for this district. I'm proud of it, and I want to make it even a better place than it is today. Thank you.
I appreciate you coming out tonight and sitting here and listening to us and trying to evaluate who would be the best board candidates. I would just urge you to exercise your right to choose, to pick the people that you think will best serve this district. Obviously, I hope I will be one of the three who are elected, but it's up to you to decide who to vote for. Thank you again for coming out tonight.
Sorry, mine's going to be just a little bit longer. I want to just quickly touch on my 4 core beliefs. Students first, always. Every decision, every recommendation, every vote I make will be based on that principle. Our staff deserve to be valued, supported, and celebrated. We need to have positive communication amongst ourselves and with the community and accept different ideas. We need to engage in responsible budgeting with a focus on the future. I have really strong relationships with staff at every level. I'm visible. I'm approachable. Should I be re-elected? I'll be the senior member with only 3 years of experience. The students, parents, staff, and deserve to have someone without a huge learning curve ahead of them. I'll continue to be a resource for my fellow board members to help them understand the ins and outs of oversight, responsible budgeting, and strong academically focused vision for the district. One of my continuing goals is to get the Board of Education to get better focused on students and student achievement. It should be common knowledge that anyone who has, quote, their own agenda should not run or serve or hold any political office whatsoever. But I do have an agenda. And my agenda are these guys sitting right here, the students. Students first always. For those who know what I stand for, who know what I've accomplished and the kind of mom, coach, educator, and board member I am, I hope you vote for me and tell your friends to do the same. For those of you who are not sure, maybe you don't know me that well, reach out to me, call me, connect with me on Facebook. I got a Facebook page. I'll talk to anyone, anytime, anywhere. I might not be able to answer your question. I might not be able to give you the answer you want. But if I can help you understand, I will. Lastly, I have a quote for the students. And you may think you're too old for Dr. Seuss, but you're not. So you're going to listen to just one quick quote, and then I'm done. It's from Dr. Seuss, and it's from the book, Oh, the Places You'll Go. So be sure when you step with care and great tact. And remember that life's a great balancing act. And will you succeed? Yes, you will indeed. 98.75% guaranteed. Kids, you'll move mountains. Thank you.
Just a reminder for if you're one of my students, if you could have one of these 4 people just put their initials on your sheets. For everybody, including students, yes, tonight we include you, we're going to have cookies out in the foyer, meet and greet, go out and talk to these people and get some ideas from them. So thank you all for coming.